Everyone knows that turning a tsundere into a maid is certainly one of the ideas of all time, but the real question is, how good is this new version of Privaty? Well, aside from being among one of the most popular characters in the game, they're also trying something new with shotgun teams once again. My name is Psyche, and today, let's explore the playstyle and build, and answer if Maid Privaty truly lives up to the hype. Let's get started. And so continues the trend of Shift Up attempting to make shotguns meta. Did they manage to do it this time? To start, Maid Privaty is a Type 3 attacker shotgun user. Electric code, standard magazine size of 9. I'll be using my skill leveling criteria as I talk about the skills and which ones to level. If you're watching this as it comes out, they also gave skill reset modules in case you mess something up and want to respec into another unit stats instead. Skill 1. The kit starts out rather uniquely. When landing 30 pellets, the 2 nearest targets to the crosshair are dealt additional damage. Before I start talking about the skill itself, I gotta explain in detail how pellets work, as I didn't do a Leona guide when she seemed to buff pellets. Every shotgun blast will fire 10 pellets in a random spread pattern. The higher your hit rate stat is, the tighter the spread and the more consistent and accurate your shots become. Each of the 10 pellets will deal damage equally split based on your final attack stat multiplier. So to keep it simple, if your final attack stat is 100, then each pellet will do 10 damage. If your final attack is 250, then splitting it into 10 pellets will net you 25 damage each. The game doesn't care if you miss, so if 9 out of 10 pellets hit something, then you will miss out on 10% of your damage. This means shotguns are quite restrictive on which enemy it can work on. Historically, shotgun comps don't really work well in campaign, as the enemies have smaller frames and move around more, so it's very likely you'll miss out on damage. Even on bosses, it's only realistically good against certain bosses, where they don't move around and their hitboxes are large enough for you to hit. With the introduction of Leona, who increases the amount of pellets per shot to 15, it's also good to remember that increasing the amount of pellets doesn't actually increase the damage, as it states if you click on the pellets keyword. How it works is that it just dilutes the damage of each pellet even more, but increasing the total amount fired. So if your final attack is 100, then each shot will be split among 15 equal portions instead of 10, where each pellet will do 6.7 points of damage instead. When Leona released, she was not exactly hyped up since pellets seemed like such a weird and niche thing to buff. But with the release of Maid Privaty, this is about to change. By default, if your shots had 10 pellets, you would have to land 3 full shots for skill 1 to take effect. But with Leona, it will only trigger every 2 shots, which is a pretty significant improvement. This skill gets a high priority, as it will trigger every 3 shots. You can imagine that it's literally a third of Privaty's overall damage. There's a reason why Summer Anis's skill 2 should be maxed out, for almost the same reasons. If you can't spare the resources, as level 7 is okay for now, but if you have Leona, this skill will get even more value, as it will be triggering even more frequently. However, before I continue from here, these skill upgrades assume you have either or both of Tove or Leona, as they are the primary supports for Privaty right now, and will also need to have some of their skills invested to make this work. Without these two, I would go lighter on the resources for now, as Privaty doesn't function as well if you didn't have them invested. Skill 2. When more than 5 pellets hit during a single shot, Privaty will gain a reload speed buff for 2 seconds. It's quite wordy, but assuming that you are bringing her to the right levels and you are not trying to snipe foes with a shotgun, you can reasonably assume this will be permanently active. So it's basically a constant reload speed buff. The second portion, if 30 pellets hit during full burst, Privaty gains an attack up for 2 seconds, and auto reloads a round. This skill gets the unique rating, as it will largely depend if you have Leona or Tove on the same team. This is because without either, it's not going to be possible to have more than 1 stack of the attack up at a time. Assuming that by default shotguns fire 1.5 shots per second, theoretically it would be possible to land 30 pellets since you will fire 3 shots in exactly 2 seconds. But this doesn't reflect real life, as there will be certain factors that can get in your way of achieving this, like a single pellet missing, you go into cover for a brief moment, or something similar. If you don't land 30 pellets in 2 seconds, the stacks are reset. This is fixable with Tove, who buffs your attack speed, or Leona, who buffs your total pellet count. If you don't have either, this is either going to be a low priority because you can't take advantage of this, or medium or even high if you have either. Finally, the burst. An attack damage up, a crit damage up, and a screen wipe AoE effect. The attack damage up is a different multiplier than just an attack up, so this is a pretty welcome buff. The crit damage, normally not so important in the game, but that multiplier is no joke, and can impact your damage assuming enough crits go through. And the AoE damage does solve a weakness of shotgun comps of not able to have good crowd control. I would personally put this at medium priority, or high if you really want to main Privaty. The attack damage up is already quite substantial at level 7, and while the AoE is nice and can even crit on its own, you only get this effect whenever you enter full burst, which is not going to be frequent. And on bosses without any additional enemies, this will only damage the boss as there is only one target. Overall, the burst is simple, but provides decent enough buffs to warrant some investment. The good news is that I don't believe there is a mandatory stat that you need to get in terms of overload lines. Most of them are good to have, but once again, if you don't have overload gear unlocked, Privaty can work just fine. Let's pull up the overload lines tier list. Again, I'm not going to put anything in the required tier, as I don't believe there is a mandatory stat for you to chase after. In the improvement tier, I'm going to be putting attack and max ammo capacity. Attack is always a solid buff, and if you're able to pair this with the Bastion cube a bit later on, you'll also be able to refund enough shots to make Privaty fire for a pretty long time. In the situational tier, only if you care about min-maxing, I'm going to put elemental damage here. If you're a hardcore player that wants to prioritize meta, then I will put elemental even on the same level as just attack. Again, this assumes that you are specifically bringing Privaty where you are having the strong element, and that by default, this multiplier will not kick in for 5/6 of the enemies in the game. So this line largely depends whether or not you want to play Privaty for meta. In the better than nothing tier, I'm going to be putting hit rate and crit rate. Because assuming that you already have a decently invested Leona, she will already provide enough hit rate to make Privaty a bit more consistent. And again, while the crit damage is still a pretty welcome bonus, just making it trigger a bit more often is also not gonna hurt. And by elimination, everything else goes in the useless tier. The cube choice is also rather simple. You go the Bastion if it's invested and have a slot available. If for some reason the Bastion is not available, you could use the Resilience or Wingman for all other cases as a placeholder, though I would recommend the Bastion. There is also the Assault Cube that buffs hit rate, that can also be used as a stat stick, but if you have Leona, then she already buffs hit rate enough that it's already a way bigger impact than what the Assault Cube can offer. When forming a team with Maid Privaty, I'm afraid your choices can be a bit limited at the moment, as there just isn't enough shotgun supports available to make team building not awkward, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Ideally, you should try to fit either Tove or Leona in the same team, as they allow Privaty to stack those attack up stacks for skill 2, which allows her to work optimally. However, if you try to do a configuration like this, then it still leaves some open holes in your defenses, as you won't have a CDR unit and have no ways in terms of defense or healing. The other option is to just run either Tove or Leona, then fill in a CDR unit. Something like Tove, Dala, Summer Helm can work in this case, but you still won't have a healer. You could also try using bunnies or the schoolgirls, and while I do kinda like the bunnies here, the major question to ask is, since Privaty is already so specialized as a shotgun user, why would you use the bunnies for something that's not a meta team? And while the schoolgirls can also work here too, you also have to consider that shotguns don't exactly have high accuracy and that you probably won't be hitting cores as often as like a sniper team. You can also just run Nor without Blanc, as she also provides additional shotgun support. In that case, a comp like Leader, Leona, Privaty, another shotgun DPS, and then the Flex could also work. Now here's the unfortunate reality though. Another top tier shotgun DPS that is also electric is Samranis. However, she wants a team where your magazine can be emptied as frequently as possible. So she and Tove will not mix very well. Meaning if you wanted to go that route, you can do something like Leader, Leona, the 2 electric shotguns, and then a Flex. Or a full-on empty mag team with Dorothy, Leona, Samranis, and Water Privaty. Even then, this is still a bit awkward because you still don't have a healer. So why not just put Marciana and Scarlet here instead? So from these teams, you can see that Privaty can be a bit tied down to existing shotgun supports that can't offer the best of all worlds. Compared to normal meta teams, you're definitely going to feel a bit exposed that not all of your bases will be covered in a team like this. While you can certainly still make it work, the resources in the game right now cannot fully support the shotgun archetype, but of course, this can always change in the future. So Privaty is being released at a bit of an unfortunate time. In a scenario where there are enough shotgun supports and teammates, Privaty can fit into a pretty solid shotgun comp. However, right now, no matter which way you spin it, building a Maid Privaty team is just a little bit awkward enough that you can't have all of the support capabilities you want, in a conventional meta team. There are still support options currently, but will require some investment into skills that's not exactly applicable anywhere else in the game. I know a lot of people will be comparing her to Scarlet. And to be fair, if you can fully take advantage of Privaty's shotgun teammates, as well as investing enough materials into their kits, then she can match Scarlet's numbers, or in some cases even surpassing it. She embodies the sentiment of, if you want to make her work, then she can work. For the time being, I have no doubt that she'll be very good in the solo raid, as the boss is tailored to electric code shotguns. I can see Privaty given even more spotlight if they release more shotgun support in the future. Luckily, she is permanent, so you can just get spooked at any time. Sure, she may not be game-breaking right now, but that's certainly not gonna stop some people from pulling a copy, myself included. For me, she sits at a 4 out of 5 rating, but for some people, she can even become a 5 out of 5, provided that you have the right teammates as well as the proper investments put into it. With the right setups, you can see that she does some pretty incredible damage, on par with some of the more revered electrical DPSs in the game. I think if we consider any future units, we can almost safely bet that just like how Toph and Leona rolled around, that Privaty will be another character that gets better with time. It is a good thing that she is permanent, so I think most people will suggest just pulling one copy for now if you like the character, then hoping for spooks down the road, as well as being able to wait for more shotgun supports in the meantime. Anyways, that is what I think of Maid Privaty. Let me know if you were able to luck sack a copy and how she's working out for you. Thanks for tuning into this Nikke character analysis video, and always remember, have fun with the game.